The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Go Cowboys! This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw Dating, preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, and broadcasting live from Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star. Now, your hosts, Christy Scales, Aisha Morrison, Nicole Hutchison, and Jess Navarez.
Well, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys, brought to you live here in the SWBC podcast studio at the Rainy Star in Frisco. A rainy start to our morning this morning, ladies. We have Christy Scales, Aisha Morrison, Jess Navarez, our Jazzy Jazz producing for us in the back today. Our Nicole Hutchison is taking some very well-deserved R&R time, so I'm here filling in as your host today, and then next week she will be back in her host seat. So we miss her, we love her, but we know she deserves one heck of a vacation, especially after all of the amazing coverage she gave us at the Combine. So, yes. Nicole, we love you, we miss you, but you better not be watching this. Enjoy the heck out of your vacation. All right, everybody. Let's start off by saying we have our text line open. So if you guys have any questions, you can text us at 817-290-3298. I'm going to have it here open throughout the show. So if you have any questions, shoot it to us and we will answer them as they come in. But we're going to start this podcast off with a little conversation, a little debate, if you will. Something that's being talked about nonstop in all things Dallas Cowboys. It's on the TV, it's on Twitter, is that of the comments of former Dallas Cowboys tight end, current Houston Texans tight end Dalton Schultz, who actually just signed, I believe, a 3-year contract with the team. And it's very interesting because he appeared on the Pat McAfee show and had some comments about what it was like to play for the Cowboys. I have the exact quote up here. I don't want to butcher this, so I'm just going to read it to you guys, and we can open it up for discussion. All right. He said, quote, "The focus is just football." You know what I mean? He was obviously talking about playing in Houston. He said, "I'm going back and telling some people about being around the Cowboys practice facility and game day and describing some of the interactions and stuff that you see on a day-to-day basis. And it surprises a lot of people. They're like, holy, it actually happens at the practice facility. You think it's normal, and then you come play at a place like this." He said, "It's literally a zoo, dude, that there's people tapping on glass trying to get people's attention while they're doing power cleans or whatever. It's different. That's the brand they've built. That's what owner Jerry Jones likes. That's the way they run things, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just don't realize how many eyeballs and how much that can maybe distract in the locker room or just being in the facility until you go somewhere else. Like, holy, there's none of that." Okay, so this comes in the wake of the Cowboys culture discussion. Ladies, I want to open this up for discussion. What do you think about Dalton Schultz's comments and kind of the weight that it's holding, especially with this offseason conversation of there being a culture problem here with the Cowboys?
Well, when he's referring to tapping the window, that's there are tours that take place at the Star in Frisco, and we need to be very clear that the only time the Cowboys are at AT&T Stadium is on game day.
Right.
All the work during the week is here at the Star in Frisco. And all these questions about culture, you know, there weren't any questions about it during the 12 wins of the regular season. The questions about the culture have come after the shocking and disappointing first-round loss. Is he right about it? Yes, there are tours that take place. Yes, there are a lot more things that come with being a Dallas Cowboy than certainly being a member of the Houston Texans or some of the franchises that don't have quite the following that the Cowboys do, or mainly it has to do with accessibility. Mm-hmm. And Jerry wants this team to be accessible not only to corporate sponsors, but also to fans. And so it's one of the few places where you can take a tour of the actual workplace during the week and not just the stadium on game day. And so I think the main phrase that people have to understand, whether you're working for the Cowboys, as an employee in the media, whether you're a player, it comes with the dinner. That's something that Jason Garrett would always say. All of these extraneous things that come with being the Dallas Cowboys, whether it's playing so many primetime games during the season because they're a top draw, right? All of that overnight travel, the being in Oxnard, California, away from your family for 3.5 weeks during training camp, all eyes being on you. It comes with the dinner. That's the way it is. Rightly or wrongly, Dalton Schultz, the main thing he's right about is that's the way Jerry wants it. And when you're the owner and when you're trying to pay all these bills and when you have the reason why the valuation is $9 billion and why this development at the Star in Frisco is worth more than the actual stadium at AT&T, it's because of all of these other things.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try to take my emotions out of it and things like that as far as talking about what it's like being here. I think we can definitely, I know me and Jess can definitely attest, being new last year, it was an adjustment. And I even so was just surprised at just some of the accessibility, to your point that you brought up, Christy. But I will say, this is a conversation that's been had before, though. And to your point about this is, this is how Jerry and the way that they have things, the accessibility, people being able to come in and everything. But I do think sometimes it can be, you can try to adjust all day and prepare for something like that, but to experience it can be distracting, and I've heard multiple players say this type of stuff about being here. I do think it is a unique situation. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything like it here in the league for any player, to the points that you made about the games, the primetime games, the amount of attention they get, the scrutiny, and just how they're under a microscope, absolutely. But in regard to what he's saying, I do think that there needs to be a balance, 100%. And I do think that although it should be, I don't know, accepted, I do think there needs to be a balance, because we have to consider that this is their workplace. This is their workplace. Just like if we were working at our desk, or people go through tours here and that's fine. We love it. But for certain instances with how high stakes what they do is, I do think sometimes it could be distracting, and it could take away some of the intensity of what this game calls for and what this game feels like and the preparation for this game feels like sometimes. So I don't know. I'm very torn about it. And in regard to the culture thing, again, I'm going to push back a little bit to you, Christy, on the fact that it's just this postseason, after this season. We've been having conversations about this culture for, the last couple of years, because that's why we have new coaches coming in and stuff, because they're trying to change it. They're trying to flip the script. They're trying to make this more football oriented. And I do think it is difficult sometimes when there is so much outside of football that goes on here. And again, it's not just even in the building. I mean, the national media, the attention that this team gets is next level stuff. I don't believe that you can coach or handle this team like any other team in the NFL, because it's very unique. And so I think it's just like I just think it's just like a new job or something. To his point, it's you can prepare all day, but to experience it, I don't know. I feel some of the players in this situation, and that's just how I feel about it.
Some players are better, and I think it has to do with your
too.
personality, your temperament, in terms of how you're able to handle not only that kind of pressure, but always being in the spotlight. I think that's one of Dak Prescott's great strengths. There have been other quarterbacks, and I'm going a little further back, that don't like it, that kind of buckled under it, right? And so I'm not talking about Tony Romo, no.
Right. I was going to say, clarify.
You might as well say it.
Further back. No, I'm not talking about Tony Romo. But Romo didn't know any differently, and neither did Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
Neither one of them, Troy Aikman, never played in a different place or system. Obviously, what Roger Staubach went through with, under Tom Landry, but it's a spectrum, right? All workplaces are a little bit different. The culture in New England under Bill Belichick was very, very different, right? I mean, just all football, and, they talk about, you're not having any fun and stuff like that. You're winning, and some players really thrive in that, but others are like, man, they couldn't, they wanted to go someplace where, I won't say easier, but a different culture. So
Right.
it takes all types, it takes all temperaments, and I agree with you. I think that for some players it could be distracting, but like Dalton Schultz, and he says it in his comments on the Pat McAfee show, he didn't know any differently until he got to Houston.
Right.
He came here in 2018 as a 4th-round pick, and
I also
he that's just the way it was.
Well, I also want to throw in there too is just because it's Dalton Schultz doesn't mean we shouldn't listen.
Right.
And I
Absolutely,
think
we
that's
should
something that's getting a little misconstrued on Twitter, especially, is because people have such strong feelings about Dalton and kind of. I guess his MO while he was in Dallas, especially when it comes to his online persona, that they're not going to listen to that. And as a fan, I understand how that could be like, oh my gosh, he doesn't want fans around and blah, blah, blah. Look, as a fan, I get it. I grew up a Cowboys fan. My family would drive from Las Cruces over here to home games from one day and then drive back. Like, I understand the amount of time, effort, energy, money, blood, sweat, tears you put into your fandom for the Cowboys, but you can't see this through a fan lens. And just because it's Dalton Schultz saying it doesn't take the validity out of it, doesn't take anything out of it. Because if it was Jason Witten saying it, you'd listen. You'd be like, oh, that's a good point, actually. But just because it's Dalton Schultz doesn't mean it's not a valid point.
I would say it means even more. I mean, this guy was a player rep here, and players union, and
That's a good point.
Really, really fine player. What a terrific career Dalton Schultz has had, and that 3-year deal he signed with the Texans this week, 3 years, $36 million. I mean, great for him, and he was a fine player when he was here. He's a good person, good family guy. So I think he is the right player to talk about things like that.
We also got a text. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
We got a text from Mike in Milwaukee. Thanks for texting us, Mike. He said, having lived in Los Angeles, it's the same with the Lakers. Players that play for the Lakers will tell you it's not like playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers. If you don't want the eyeballs on you, don't play for the Dallas Cowboys. We were kind of talking about this before the show started of how this could be a debate. Aisha, I want to defer to you for this.
Right.
Because I think it's not just so black and white. I think there's a lot of in-between gray space that makes that kind of a hard point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, if you drafted, baby,
You don't have a choice.
baby, you ain't got no choice.
Yeah.
And I do think it is a give and take thing. I do think it is a give and take thing. I mean, I think a lot of players benefit from being here. The brand deals, the notoriety, and things like that. I do think that there's good that comes in it. But again, my thing about hearing players like Dalton Schultz, Chidobe Awuzie, there's been multiple players, is the fact that they sound refreshed when they say it. It would be different if they were just saying it, but they're saying, I enjoy this. I enjoy this side of things more. And again, I really do think that sometimes the business side of things, the entertainment piece, all of that it overshadows the football sometimes. And I really do think that some of the players again, we've heard multiple players talk about this, that it's going to be important for them to kind of find a balance and adopt some of the things. I mean, it doesn't have to be Belichick. It doesn't have to be like that.
Right.
But it's nothing wrong.
I'm giving two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I think it's nothing wrong with adapting and finding some balance in that, because I don't know, like we talk about it, the preparation week to week and what they have to work they have to put in and things like that. I just sometimes even I personally feel like it's a little much. But in regard to the draft stuff and guys not really having a choice sometimes, I mean, these guys are playing for their livelihood and things like that. So it's like, it's easier said than done. Just don't come here. Just don't play here.
It's also...
but you're right. You don't, it's not, if you're drafted, this is one of the few careers in the United States where you don't have a say in where you go and ply your craft.
I think it can deter players, though. I think it has deterred players. I think it has deterred players because even from the social media aspect of like what the players experience on a regular basis. I mean, respectfully, J-Ron Curse had death threats this past season from a fan.
Yep.
Would they experience that other places if it wasn't so microscope everything. Because another thing too is like, I love being here, but we have more media than most teams.
Oh my gosh.
We have
By
more.
a lot.
We buy a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot more voices speaking on and breaking down the intricacies of the game and breaking down all of the,
Even if they're not in the building every day.
talk about it. Even if they're not in the building every day. Our radio station, our owner and our owners, they go on to radio station. Like, there's more.
Four hits a week on the Fan.
That's-
105.3 FM. Jerry does 2 a week during the season, and Steven does 2
And Mike?
during the week.
Yeah,
and Mike on Friday
absolutely.
mornings.
So I do think that our fan base sometimes is overeducated. I wish that there was some secrets in this place. I wish that there wasn't always everybody knowing everything all the time, because I do think when you have as much information as our fan base gets from the YouTube community, from the content creators, from the radio, from us, it really it's different. This is very unique. I really do think like we take for sometimes I have to sit and think like there's so many voices talking about this team consistently. And then if you turn on the TV, teams that are other teams, like they may not mention them all week. They may not mention them all year. Like, it's just,
I also think too,
I don't know.
It depends on, I guess, the circumstance of the player, on if
and
they.
you said the temperament too, which I thought was
Yeah,
great,
and-
Christy,
Yeah.
because
You
it's
know,
the truth. That's
It,
true.
it really is so interesting, because you have guys like Dalton Schultz and Cheeto that have come out to say, you know, and they're relatively younger players. And I can't imagine, well, I guess to an extent, you and I can kind of relate, of being younger and not knowing any different and coming in here and kind of being shell-shocked at first. I mean, even us doing this podcast, when did we start this? Not last season,
Yeah.
season before? Wow, that's crazy. That went by
2
fast.
years.
You know, it's shell-shocking.
It is.
And but then you have a guy like Jason Peters that came in here,
Loved it.
you know, and thrived
Hankins,
in it.
Hankins as
Hankins
well.
loves
He
It's
loves
just,
it.
I think it depends too on experience, whether that be football, life, anything. Because then you also have guys like Wanye that absolutely thrives in being a Dallas Cowboy. And he is a younger player.
Yeah, the guys who get it, and again, it's temperament. Some people don't want the attention of, like, for example, Leighton Vander Esch. And I'm not talking about contract, whether he's coming back. I'm just talking about him coming in as a first-round pick. He did not do he does the minimum amount of media. That's what he's done in the past. And he's had some sponsorship things, but he could have owned this town. You know,
Yeah.
he could have owned it and had so many more sponsorships and the like. CeeDee Lamb does quite a few. Now he's going to explode nationally.
Yeah.
Right? So the guys that get it, and the guy, you know, they can really take advantage of it. But not everybody wants it. That's not Leighton's temperament. Sean Lee, he didn't really care for that. Now, did he do all the charitable things? Did he have the foundation? Yes. But he did it behind the scenes and things like that. And a lot of these guys, Dak, there's a wonderful story in the Dallas Morning News today. Check it out. David Moore wrote it. If you can go online, get through the paywall, it's worth reading about Dak and what he did with Children's Cancer Fund this week. Guys like Dak, they really embrace it. Does it pay off monetarily through sponsorships? Yes. But I'm telling you, because I have hosted many of the events, that there are so many more things that Dak does that are not for publicity, that are not televised, that are not people don't hear about him. He doesn't want you to.
Yeah.
But I would like to give one concrete example though of how things might be different here than other teams. What are you guys talking about? The microscope. How would it affect players? I think an obvious example is training camp in California, being out there for 3 we were gone 26 days this year. So most teams now train at home, including the Houston Texans. They don't go off. But here's an example of how things are different. When the Cowboys come back and have the final week and a half, basically 3 to 4 practices that are open to the public, by the time we get back from training camp, it's mid-August, late August, kids are back in school.
Right.
So the practices that would be during the day in Oxnard here in Frisco are in the evening so that people can attend.
Yeah.
Because the first year or two that we did it, there was nobody. It was during the day on a Thursday morning or a Wednesday morning or, afternoon, whatever the case. And it was nearly empty because guess what? Summer break was over. Kids were back in school, or it's during the work week. And so now, the past few years, they've had those practices at night. So it's an adjustment of the practice schedule. Sure. So that's just, I'm trying to give a concrete example of, is that a big deal? No, but is it different from how other teams do things? It's just an example.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
let's take our first break because we ran over just a little bit with this conversation. When we come back, though, we're talking about a veteran that did get re-signed. Is it who you think? We'll discuss it on the other end of this break. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw. We'll be right back. Stick with us.
We know that juicy, cheesy, grilled to perfection burger sounds amazing, but it does sound like something is missing. Pepsi, baby! The yin to this burger's yang. Burgers and Pepsi go together like burgers and Pepsi. This perfect blending of flavors makes every bite of lettuce, every sesame seed on the bun, and every sip of that crisp, refreshing, ice-cold cola a journey to Foodtopia. Burgers, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that 6th ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
CONCACAF Nations League Finals, I'm so sorry, are coming to AT&T Stadium. Don't miss your chance to watch North America's best soccer team battle it out in the semifinals on March 21st, then see who lifts the trophy in the championship on March 24th. Tickets are available now at SeatGeek.com, the official ticketing provider of AT&T Stadium. Sounds like a fun time. Welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk. Speaking of a fun time, we are brought to you by Jigsaw, the preferred dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys. Thank you, Jigsaw. Ladies, Aisha, Christy, I'm Jess, Jazzy Jazz in the back for us.
Like Jazzy.
We love our Jazzy. All right, so we were just talking about Cowboys culture, and, you know, one of the most interesting topics other than Cowboys culture to come up this off season is that of the salary cap and contracts and deals that need to be done and all of that good stuff. The Cowboys re-signed veteran DT Carl Davis. If you remember, he was signed in the later half of the season last year to the practice squad, and he used up his 3 elevations fairly quickly to fill in for Jonathan Hankins. So I thought that was interesting. Other than that, the franchise tag deadline has come and it has gone. It said hello and then it said goodbye very quickly. And the Cowboys didn't use theirs this offseason, which was expected. We had talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that there really wasn't anybody that we could see them putting this tag on. So been there, done that. Christy, you wanted to talk about some of the tags that were used around the league.
Yeah.
And then speaking of tags, to kind of tie it back in, obviously we know Tony Pollard was on the franchise tag last year. Let's get into that discussion as well. But let's go around the league a little bit. Let's talk about the importance of this tag and kind of some names that stood out to you.
Well, the main one that stood out to me in defensive tackle, you mentioned Carl Davis coming back. Obviously, he's going to be a depth guy and, you know, part of the rotation. And
nice guy.
Yeah. So, but Justin Matabike with Baltimore. And then, of course, the Chiefs tagged their cornerback, L'Jarius Sneed, because Chris Jones is available, and if they had tagged him with his number, it would have been over $30 million. So if you told me, Christy, you could have any free agent this offseason, that's the one from Baltimore. Of course, I'm an Aggie, too, so I'm a little biased. But when I'm not surprised that they tagged him, but I was like, not that the Cowboys they would have to do a lot of juggling, you know, to be able to afford Justin. I think he's going to get probably near $30 million a year, certainly in the upper 20s at least, you know, on average. But when I saw that, I was like, good for him. I'm happy for him. And I think Baltimore is going to try and get a long-term deal done with him before the July deadline. But when he went on that, I was like, oh, man. Yeah,
I was watching, yesterday, I mean, we saw the Bills
Cut 3
move some furniture.
Yeah.
Because
big time
They were a little
players.
busy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were a little busy, and you just kind of look at, free agency is coming up, and I think that teams are, particularly the Bills, are preparing to be able to spend some change, to win
Jazzy,
those
can we
shots
get that cha-ching?
a tiny bit. I think I saw a quarterback get tagged. No,
No.
No,
No.
there was not.
who was it that got? There was.
Here's
was
this
a,
list.
There was a player that stood out to me that got
the
tagged.
other one, Brian Burns is a big one
Oh, it's in my
with
face.
Carolina. They list him as an edge rusher,
Yeah.
but he's one of the top players. He would be my second pick after Matabike, but he's off the
listed
market
as an
too.
edge
So it's
rusher.
like
We'll get
I'm
into that
laughing.
discussion,
That's why
too.
I thought that a quarterback got tagged. It's the Josh Allen for Jacksonville.
Oh.
and see that's another. He would have been my third. He would have been my third.
You know what? That's okay.
My
My
brain,
top 3 guys.
my brain was like, dang.
That's the pass rusher for Jacksonville.
They
All pro.
tagging. They tagging him.
I think Josh already has his money.
Y'all leave me alone.
Here's
love
a
you so
question though. So with Tony Pollard not getting tagged, he was tagged
Yep.
last year.
Yep.
And there's some speculation, depending on how things go in the open market for Pollard. What do you guys think the chances are that he actually comes back to the Cowboys?
You know what? I think it's higher than we think.
I think it's very
much
high at this point.
much higher than we anticipated. And again, we talk about guys that kind of can handle the pressures of being a Dallas Cowboy. Tony Pollard is one of those guys. He's not the most vocal guy in the room. He's not yelling. He's very soft-spoken. In fact, when we're talking to him in the scrum, I'm like, what did you say?
Yes.
Because he's very soft-spoken. But he enjoys being here, and he enjoys doing what he needs to do to help this team, whether it be, hey, I'm running back 2 behind Ezekiel Elliott. Oh, it's my turn to step up and be the one. Guess what? I'm going to do it. And it may not have been the season we were all expecting and hoping from Tony Pollard. But look, I don't see any harm in trying to bring him back on a deal that's respectful and reasonable for what he wants, what the team can do, especially not having figured out Dak's contract situation yet. And then, you know what? If you want to make that a training camp competition of who's actually your starting quarterback, whether you starting running back, whether you draft one, whether you pick up there's a laundry list of
really
free
are.
agent running backs you could pick from. Make it a competition, or you say, hey, you're going to step back in the reins of the 2, and that's how we're going to keep it. But I don't think there's any harm in bringing him back. And, I understand the bitter taste in everybody's mouth because of the disappointing career low season that he had. But look, I get running back is a dime a dozen, and the position isn't what it used to be. And there's just, the free agents that are available. It's almost insane, this world we live in now, that you never thought guys like this would be available.
Yeah, it's going to be a depressed market again.
It
for
really
sure,
is.
monetarily.
But again, I think Tony Pollard's a guy you want to keep, especially because he can really hold up as a running back too, and that's valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, when you look at even this draft class, there are some guys in here, but I thought about that recently. Is if I'm a running back, right? I'm in college now. I'm going to the draft. When they were in high school and they're playing running back, they're thinking about the type of money they're going to make when they get to the game and what they could be doing. And now to see how the position is very much so by committee and things like that, we always look at it as, oh, that's good. You can keep guys healthier. You can give them more longevity. But no, total yardage on the season and things like that matters, and these guys are having to share and exchange reps more than they've ever had to do before. So it is something that I thought about, and I'm pretty sure it is a little disheartening to some of these young guys coming in knowing that, hey, babe, after that rookie contract,
Be careful.
it might
they're
be
going to use you up.
Yeah, I'm looking like I'm hoping that some of these young guys coming in and this draft are preparing and putting things in place outside of the game, because it's just this position is, and even if you look at the position in itself, baby, if you ain't got no receiving qualities, it's almost a detriment because teams can take you away and take advantage of that.
And pass protection.
Tracking.
Because this is a passing game now.
Yeah.
And if you
And it's
can't pass
heightened.
protect, you are not going to be on the field.
And that's something Tony
much
Pollard
abuse.
really worked on this season. That
He-
you can talk about, he had a career low in rushing yards and yards per carry and blah, blah, blah. He was pass proing his butt off out there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And that's not something you've seen out of Tony Pollard in years, given you haven't had to because you had Ezekiel Elliott, I understand. But he also made it a point to talk to us even at training camp, talking about wanting to work on his pass pro.
And they changed up the pass pros
They
this year for the
did.
running backs. That was one of the changes of
He
the
was very
offseason.
stout. He was very stout, and I think even when you look at the pass pro and how much he did sacrifice his body, that wears on you.
Sure.
It wears on you as the season goes on. Furthermore, there wasn't consistency behind him.
Nope.
So there wasn't really a committee, not a steady one.
No.
So he took a lot of the weight as opposed to, some of these other teams, they had a committee. So their guys were more fresh towards the end of the season. And I also will say I'm glad that he said, I think it was, I don't know, what week was it? It was later in the season where he was like, he admitted, I'm starting to feel and you could see that in his play.
Yes.
You could see the burst from him.
Starting
You
to
could
feel
see
like
some.
himself
He
again.
was
It
starting
was
to,
inverted because usually you kind of lose it as the season
Yes,
goes along.
but it was
is
different
he
for him.
coming off the injury.
It's almost like
to trust it.
He
to
had a
trust
broken leg to come back from. That's crazy.
Surprise!
It's crazy that like a running back needs a healthy leg to be successful. Being a running back, that's wild.
I would definitely bring him back also because of the scheme. They implemented a whole new scheme last year for a youngin to come in here and have to pick up on a whole new scheme by himself, I believe. It's the easiest transition in football, people say, from running back from college to NFL. However, it's still a transition. Even to your point about the pass pro and things like that, having him come back could be beneficial. I hope that they pair him with one of these thumpers, some of these guys, some of these rookie guys that can come in and be powerful in the run game. But I really need... And I've been saying on the draft show, I don't care who's running the ball. Baby, we need to improve the run game scheme and efficiency and execution. That needs to be a point of emphasis this offseason because a lot of why they weren't productive, too, was because it wasn't that creative sometimes.
Also,
what did you say over there? TV? It wasn't that creative.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes.
Also, if you want to give Dak Prescott a shot at another MVP caliber season, you need a solid
Say
run game.
that.
Excellent.
You want a chance to get past that first round? Well, guess what you were missing against Green Bay? A solid run game. But guess what we were talking about all season that was inconsistent? A solid run game. And so everything, if you want it all to tie together with a pretty bow, get over this 30-year hump and fix the culture, blah, 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 blah. Look, you need to help your quarterback in giving him a run game.
Look.
Especially if you want to play this game and not give him a contract extension, you want him to play lights out, guess what he needs? It's almost like
Is play action
I'ma
in the
start again.
Is play action in the
You're
room
gonna
with
get-
us?
it wasn't. No, play action wasn't in the room with us.
I'm sorry to be
that's-
giggling, y'all.
It's not a shade to Tony Pollard or Rico Dowdle or anything they did. It was just the most unproductive scheme, especially when you're coming off of a 1-2 punch year with Zeke and TP, and you know what they're capable of doing.
Right.
It's just whatever. Look, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. I'm gonna start getting real mad about this again.
Pray for a screen game. Pray, Saints, pray.
Hey, we've been praying for over 30 years.
We've been praying. You know what?
I thought Linehan's screen game was decent.
It was.
But
it was.
only,
But
it was only to the right side, though, baby. We never did no screens to the left. Let me tell you something. All right, go ahead. Let's just
to
go.
the left. Okay. All right. Let's hit our next break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Micah Parsons talk. There was some interesting moves that were made. We're going to talk about why it's not the Cowboys' fault. You can fault them for a lot of things if you want to be that kind of fan. But this is not. We're going to talk about why coming up on the other end of this break. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw. We'll be right back. Stick with us.
At Jigsaw Dating, we obviously want the Cowboys to bring that sixth ring home. But to be honest, we're more focused on finding the person who will put a ring on your finger. That's why we created a dating app that reveals your face through meaningful conversation, so you can date deeper. Because it's personality that matters the most, not looks. Join Jigsaw Dating today, dating partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
You know that sound anywhere. It's the crisp crunch of that first nacho chip. With its perfect cheese to sour cream ratio sitting atop a layer of delicious beans, it's a sip away from perfection. That's what we're looking for. Add a delicious, refreshing Pepsi and we've achieved absolute nacho nirvana. Because while you can pile those nachos high with every spicy, cheesy, savory topping, there's no topping a cool Pepsi finish. Nachos, better with Pepsi. That's what I like.
Excellent dining, boutique shopping, and exciting events in the Star District in Frisco, featuring dozens of North Texas's best restaurants and shops, plus a calendar full of family-friendly events. There's always something to do. There's always something to shop, dine, and do, in fact, at the Star District. Visit thestardistrict.com for more information. Welcome back to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw. We have Christy, Aisha, Jess, Jazzy Jazz in the back. If you have questions for us, you can text us for the next, we'll say 10 minutes. At 817-290-3298. Our text line is open. As these texts come in, I'll read them out loud, and then we'll answer whatever questions. Again, 817-290-3298. All right, cool.
Cars for
Tell
kids.
them to stop asking me all these dang draft questions.
Quit asking Aisha all the dang draft questions.
not
You had a homework assignment.
I
for
tried to
this
do the
show.
homework.
Look, the draft
they asking
show
me deep stuff.
is literally in like 10 minutes.
They talking about some tell me
30
more.
minutes, maybe.
Tell you more. This ain't the show for that.
Look, you can watch the draft show. Our girl Aisha Morrison is on there as well.
I'll
Watch the
message you
draft show in a
guys.
little
I'll
bit.
message you guys back later on with what the players you asked me about.
I'll tell you what. Starting
I'll
on Girls
comment.
Talk, Boys Talk, we'll start doing an Aisha draft segment because we had to do
Yes,
that last year.
Absolutely.
So
Please,
we'll
let's
start
do
that.
that.
We'll start that next
By
week.
popular demand.
Yeah, the people want what the people want.
I
Give the people what they
see.
want.
Jesus.
She loves you guys.
It
She
puts
really
so much
does.
pressure on me.
We do have a question from another Mike, not to be confused with other Mike who sent us a text earlier, and not to be confused with Mike McCarthy or Mike Zimmer. There's a lot of Mikes. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, Mike from Boston said, do you worry with all the coaches being on basically one-year deals that maybe they'll make decisions they normally wouldn't make if they had more security, maybe on a big game decision where normally he made you one thing, but now you feel that pressure and makes a bit of a rash decision? Mm-hmm. That's a fantastic question, and it made me stop and think for a second. What do you guys think? I'm going to put this up for discussion.
In game, no. But in terms of depth chart and player evaluation and draft,
Right.
yeah, you know, the whole thing here is draft and develop, draft and develop, draft and
got time for
develop.
that.
But when you're on a one-year contract and you have a choice between an untested rookie and a guy who's maybe been in your system before or certainly has some experience in the NFL, then who are you going to go with?
Yeah. They're going to definitely feel a sense of urgency, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
You would hope for that they felt the sense of urgency. Now, I mean, coaches coaching on one-year deals always sounds like not so good, but I think some of these gentlemen might look at it, especially like a Zimmer, like he hasn't coached in the NFL for a while, like, not a while,
Well, just last
year.
Yeah,
but it's been a year.
Yeah.
So
Also
a
hasn't been
year
in
or
DC
two.
in a minute.
So, but you know, like Eric Kendricks gets released by L.A.
Right.
And he played for years.
They might
He
it.
was at Mike's son's funeral.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he you know, that would be an example
Very
of
much
bringing in a
so.
guy like that.
When you saw the Dan Quinn wave of guys come in, could see something similar.
But it's a great question, Mike.
It is.
It really is.
Thank you, Mike from Boston.
But again, I just can't see it on game day.
Yeah, that's
the
fair.
other thing would be is if the season goes south for some reason, whether it's injuries or just sometime the ball doesn't bounce your way, towards the end of the year, are guys going to be putting lines out to try and, you know, if they see the writing on the wall, will they be putting some lines out to see if maybe they can set something up for themselves to continue their NFL careers or that? But that would be way down the road. But
Hopefully
I
that's
think more
not a future
immediately it has to do with roster building. But the coaches do have an input. They don't have final say, but they do have input, and also in terms of who's getting the reps.
Yeah. Real quick, before we run out of time, I promised you guys that you couldn't blame the Cowboys for something. And let's talk about it because the Cowboys are picking up the 5th-year option for Micah Parsons. This option is under defensive end, which is a $2.7 million less than a linebacker would be in the year 2025. Let's talk about it because that 5th-year option and the position he's designated as is not in fact determined by the Cowboys, Christy.
Right.
Let's open this up and let's put this to rest because I keep seeing the arguments on Twitter and I'm sick of it.
Yeah, well, it's
trying to have a good day today.
Yeah, it's the league. They tally where you played the most, at which position during the season. He did play the vast majority of the season, over 85% at defensive end. So linebacker gets more. But that's because so many of the highest paid linebackers are the pass rushing linebackers, right? That, stand up, pass rush off the edge kind of thing. So edge rushers drives up the average compared to defensive ends. So, but really that's ultimately determined by where you played the previous season.
There you go. Aisha?
I don't have a whole bunch of comments about it.
But is he, is he an edge rusher? Yes.
What did he call himself? An edge rushing linebacker?
Yeah, edge rusher.
But he didn't. I definitely, with this conversation and us knowing this, I'm very curious, especially with his contract coming up next year. I'm curious to see how much he is going to play linebacker and Zim's scheme muffins, man.
It's okay.
And how they operate and use him off ball and do some things as well. So, I mean, yeah, he did. He played mostly DN, Big Brody.
Yeah, but the other thing is, how did they address defensive end, especially if you lose Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler? It may not, by necessity. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's all building the roster or injuries.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you have an injury at one spot.
This is a tough draft to not, number one, not gotten a lot of production from your guys you drafted last year, and they don't have that many picks. Now, I'm praying and fasting that they do something to get a 4th-round pick. But this is, I feel like they're going to need some stuff.
Yeah.
Truly, after this free agency, kind of subsides and things. And you guys just mentioned two of the depth pieces for DN.
Mm-hmm.
Where else are they going to find that at? And so to me, I'm just, I know a lot of people, even with Carl, they're like, why are they re-signing him?
You need it.
You need bodies.
Depth.
Have you looked at the depth at the DT position
Also,
right now?
Jonathan Hankins
He's
still
still
technically going to hit the market.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a key part of this.
Yeah.
Key part of it. You saw what happened when he wasn't there.
And are we counting on Mozzie to make a second-year leap?
I don't know.
Because it was an underwhelming rookie season.
You need to
be charitable.
Here's the thing.
Can't.
You need him to. It's not a can we, should we. No, he needs to.
I think you need to be playing it like,
with the lack of depth, you need to.
you need to be playing it like
Sink or
you
swim.
don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
The defense.
I'm not trying to be harsh.
No,
you just don't.
There's nothing to go off of. Truly, there's nothing to go off of for us to actually know.
Yeah, the defensive front seven is something that I think these guys are going to take very seriously in this draft upcoming. Yes, you do one of this wide receiver class is just through the roof. Might put them in some tough spots. I think obviously the tackle class is just through the roof at the top level. There's a lot of talent there, but I think it is going to be important for them to kind of look at D and DT maybe later rounds and see if they can find some guys that can come in and be productive immediately. They need production from guys this draft class, at least the top 3, immediately.
My question for you, Christy gave you some homework last week.
Right.
When we were talking about the combine, we didn't really get into that discussion too much. However, for our last few minutes, let's have you reveal your homework to the class, and we'll give you a grade, whether we think you did your homework
it's already
or not.
an A.
You
but
gonna grade me?
now I want to know.
I'm gonna be the harsh teacher then. All right.
I got a couple of guys.
What are your notes from the combine, and who should the people keep an eye out for? Since they want to ask you draft questions, there you go.
Honestly, these guys are a little random. I mean, Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, running back. People know who he is. This guy's like a baby tank, y'all. And not like baby tank like DeMarcus Lawrence. Like, he runs like a baby tank. Like, he's not that big in stature, but he runs really downhill, and he's physical. He does have vision and foot quickness to cut back and follow linemen. I think he does a good job sitting on the lineman's hip and following him through blocks. He doesn't possess a lot of lateral agility, so he's not jump cutting all crazy and doing all this stuff and just bouncing to the outside. But when he runs, you feel him. You feel his presence. He's powerful.
So short yardage, actual short yardage back.
But he does have some good top end speed, and he can explode through contact as well. This is a guy that constantly is falling forward.
Sounds like someone we used to know.
Yes, I think he plays with just enough patience, to allow things to open up and form. Because sometimes you see guys, the running backs, where you just like, go now. You waiting too long. No, I think he's just patient enough to get some production there. I think guys would just get tired of tackling his ass. He is one of those gentlemen, and he's a tank. A lot of the conversation of the combine was like, this guy's just built like.
What's he listed at, about 215 or so? Around that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think he's. I'm gonna say
low 200s or.
Yeah, he's like
thick legs and
very thick stature.
Sounds familiar.
Very
Sorry,
thick
guys.
stature. I don't know why I did not write down.
No, that's all right.
weight.
But
No,
stout and thick.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
What you
And,
need?
He's 6'2", 245.
Ooh, very big.
Yes,
Wow.
very
That's
big.
bigger than a lot of linebackers.
Yes.
Holy cow.
So he's just
I wouldn't want to tackle that either.
I
Oh
think
my
this is a
goodness.
guy, I don't know how high he's going to go. He did not run his 40 at the combine, which, again, is these guys' choice. Some of these gentlemen like to just do their pro day workouts and go about their business. But I think that's going to be important, seeing what his 40 is. But if you look at the tape, he's just a punishing guy with some explosiveness and the ability to get to the second level and do some things. But I just think he's one of those gentlemen that you can hit him with your speed back, and then when you hit him with this guy, they're going to be like, bro, sit him down. Like, people are going to try to take advantage of when he is not on the field. Second guy I got, listen, one thing that I think was underrated last year and we didn't talk about enough was special teams and how special teams coverage suffered when CJ Goodwin got hurt, and that there was just some issues there in coverage. There was some issue there with returns. Gentleman that was at the what was it, the Shrine Bowl, Steel Chambers, linebacker. I was able to speak to him briefly and get to know him. He's a hell of a personality. You see him with his bandanas on and all his sleeves and all this stuff. He's very expressive. Ooh. A lot of people talked about at the combine just how much of a personality he is and how he's going to win you over. But this dude, he might be friendly out there, but when he's on the field, he's a hard hitter. He's still learning the linebacker position because he's a former running back.
Interesting.
Which is insane, but he's a former running back.
I bet he can diagnose plays in a way that's different from other guys who've only played defense.
Sounds like a potential green dot.
He's 6'1", 232. So he has good size.
So smaller than the guy he's tackling in rookie camp.
So
they don't tackle him.
So I think any team that brings him in is going to have to help him develop and things like that. He has a high motor. He's a decisive, physical tackler. He's also has like a relentless pursuit. Again, I think that's going to come in handy with special teams. I think this guy, of course, you want him to eventually play linebacker and be able to play the game. I definitely think he can. He has a lateral quickness, the processing, all that stuff. But man, as a special teams player, he could be your ace. He could be your gunner. I think he could be a difference maker, or even like a personal protector. I think he could be a key position for a special teams player, because he's just heavy enough to be forceful, but just light enough to be able to run and move and things like that.
So what DeMarvion Overshown was supposed to be last season before he got injured.
Ohio State. By the way, Ohio State. Steel Chambers, linebacker out of Ohio State. Interesting player, guys.
Ooh,
good. Well, that's what we want. We want nuggets of players that we didn't get to see every week.
And he should be there in the later rounds. I think he's not going to go super high. He's not. Yeah. But people who get him, this is a fiery player, and I think he can immediately make your special teams better.
And the kind of personality that would thrive in this kind of environment.
Oh, he would love him some bones.
Oh.
Love him some bones to death. Yeah. But I think they need that help. I think special teams took a step back last year.
Also, it had to, because of all the shifting all of the injuries did on special teams. So people were playing positions that they've never played before, and they're learning on the spot.
And this time next week, we may be having a conversation about changes in the kickoffs. And so special teams could be really, really key because kickoffs are coming back in the NFL if the owners vote for some of these things that John Fossil has been presenting to the competition committee.
All right, guys. Well, our time is up here. I appreciate you ladies so much. Aisha, Christy. A+, by the way. Good job.
Yes.
I thought I was going to be a hard teacher, but I'll be lenient today. Thank you, ladies, so much. It's always a fun time. Our Jazzy in the back, we appreciate you as well. We'll be back here same time, 10 a.m. Central Time, wherever you are listening to this podcast. Girls Talk, Boys Talk will be back. I won't be here next week. I will be living my best life in
Guardians
Disney World.
of the Galaxy.
Yep. So don't bother me with your Cowboys questions. I'm off next week. I am unplugging and taking some much-needed mental health Disney recharge.
Have a magical day.
Thank you. As a millennial Disney adult, I must go do that.
Have a magical day.
Thank you guys so much for listening. If you have questions throughout the week, please send them. We'll answer them. And we'll have plenty to talk about next week. Thanks for listening, tuning in. We appreciate you. This is Girls Talk, Boys Talk, presented by Jigsaw. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!